been working on the biggest knitting project of my life for the last 6 months, and I think I owe you all an update. Hi, hello, welcome or welcome back to my channel. Knits by Mandy. This is the second installment of the Stella Quilt blanket vlogs. I started knitting on this blanket last October, and I have a lot of updates I want to share with you all. You may have seen some here and there through either my podcast episodes or my Instagram, but I thought it'd be good to come back to the vlogs. We can kind of regroup. I'm at an inflection point right now where I want to do some extra planning on what I think the blanket's going to look like, and we can make those plans together. But first, let me show you the progress I've been able to make on this blanket for the past 6 months. So I started out in October, and this is my first square. Laura Penrose in the pattern refers to motifs as motif 1 and motif 2, which I'll continue for brevity and clarity. This is motif 2. I knit it in all of my favorite colors, and it took about over a month to finish this. I had a stop and go moment with my gauge where I figured it out, and for your reference, I'm knitting a square that is 35 stitches in width, corner to corner. That's the size that I got gauged the best with when I weighed the yarn and weighed each triangle at the very beginning, and she walks you through how to do that in the pattern. After a little gauge troubleshooting, I was able to finish this one full of plums, purples, and pinks, some of my favorite colors. I really needed a morale boost that time of year, and this really helped me. After I finished this, I decided to move on to some deeper, cooler tones and finished this square, also done in motif 2, and this has more mossy greens, vibrant blues, and teals, and I really love how these colors came together, and I felt like these two almost, they kind of feel like siblings to me. I mean, I guess they'll all be related in the end, but I don't know, this is like the bluer, deeper version of this one, especially like tone and palette wise. I love that pop of cobalt blue. I love the teal. I just really like how all the colors came together in this one. Started this in December and finished it, I think, just into the new year. Then it took me a while to start and finish my third square. I have been knitting other things as I've been working on the blanket. I haven't just been working straight, just to kind of keep me interested, and I like to have at least a few things to work on. So for the last square that I've done, I did it in motif 1 in these really pretty icy blue colors. At first I was like, oh, I'll do these icy blues for January in the winter, and I finished it in April. But that's okay, not a race here. And I'm really happy with how this motif turned out. I really love the colors, and I love the quilt motifs. They're so fun. They are meditative to work on. It's just the best project, really. I feel like I can come back to and almost refill my cup creatively when I work on these squares. So that is what I have so far. When we talked in my last vlog, I think I wanted to make a 9 square quilt, but I'm definitely feeling now I'd like to make it a full 12 squares. Sassy. I'd like to go big or go home kind of in that regard, and just have a nice queen-sized blanket. I just laid these out on my floor and measured them, and it would be a 3x4 blanket, and it'd be about 60 inches in width. Yeah, I laid these 3 squares out and measured them, and it looks like we're gonna have about 60 inches in width, and if I have a 3x4, it'll be about 80 inches in length. Where that leaves me is I have 9 squares left. I'd like to have a bit more of an idea in my head of where all the squares and motifs will land. I don't want to overly plan out this blanket, and I want to give room for me to play, but I also want to kind of split at least the number of motifs so there's some variety in the blanket. That being said, here are my next steps for this vlog. The first thing that I want to do is kind of plan out the next motifs. I have a new palette of yarn that I want to start, which are these beautiful green colors. I'd like to figure out what motif I'm using for that, but before I do that, I want to take a look at the bigger picture. So I have my bigger bag of mini skeins in here. We'll take a look. I've purchased a little bit of yarn here and there, and then we'll get a better idea of what the finished product of this blanket is going to look like. I also finally have some end weaving to do in. I have these all face down on my chairs in the office, and I had thought I had finished weaving in the ends in my second square. I didn't, obviously, and I just finished the third one, so I know that I have some end weaving in to do. So that's what you'll expect to see me doing in this vlog, and let's get into some planning and some yarn winding. That didn't take as long as I thought. Here's a very elevated look at my very sophisticated note-taking method. I just noted the colors and then what motif I'm gonna use for them. And here's what I learned. I have enough yarn right now to make 10 squares total. So I'd be short 2. I would either need like a collection of minis in a different color or like one skein or like mix a few skeins of fingering weight stock yarn. And what I'm also noticing is I have a lot more cool tone or like the latter half of the rainbow, the G-Biv, if you will. I have way more of those color palettes than I do have warmer palettes. So I did try to get ahead of that and buy like this yellow. I got this while I was in Savannah to use for the first motif. But I think I could use maybe one more warm, and then I could use another pink maybe to kind of blend it all together. I'm not in a rush to buy those yarns, but it's good to know when I go to different yarn shops and I'm like browsing what to get. I knew in the back of my head that I needed some more pink. I ended up picking these up while I was just in Pittsburgh this weekend. These are Madeline Tosh. They're really mini though, so these are only 12 grams, and each square takes up about 8. So you wouldn't be able to do like a full 2 squares with these, but I thought it'd just be good to add a little bit here and there and kind of see where I get. As it stands right now, I would have 5 of the second motif and 5 of the first motif. So I'm actually pretty even, which makes me feel good. So the one thing that I didn't mention and that you are not seeing in this is that you can save your scraps from the other little triangles that you do, and they're about 4 grams left, and then you can hold 2 4 grams, 2 4 grams to make one triangle of color together. So that's another option to help supplement if I only need to buy like 1 extra skein of yarn or something. So I'm pretty happy with what I have so far. So I decided after looking at the numbers, I'm gonna turn this into the second motif, the larger star. I have a better picture of these and better lighting. The overhead lighting in my kitchen is harsh, but this pretty green, fresh spring palette, I'm also gonna supplement with this sock yarn from Arcane Fiberworks. Let's get into the spinning and get started on our next square. So the next thing that I'll do is plan out the order of the star and kind of just like rearrange the yarns in a way that I think is pleasing. One trick that I've learned is that you want to lean into contrast just a little bit when you're selecting your yarns for the different colors, because if you look at these 2 colors, they're super similar, which they're very nice together, but you're not gonna get that visual effect of seeing the different points of the star if you have these 2 together. My first thing that I wanna do is almost put these in order of like shade, right? Like that almost. But that's not necessarily gonna make the best star. I'll show you on on this one. I had like 2 dark greens and 2 dark blues. So you can see these 2 I didn't want to put together because they're like really similar, and then these greens were similar enough that I wanted to be able to break them up, and that way you get the full effect of the star, and I think every color gets its moment. I'm not a color theory girly. I wish I had a more keen sense of color, but this is this is the closest we're getting. The Stella Quilt pattern does have little worksheets that you can play with, but I find that this works the easiest for me. And I'll just take a picture of this and refer back to it whenever I'm knitting my squares. This is my tentative idea. When I was thinking about these colors, I wanted to anchor this kind of Kelly green. I like the contrast of these two, and then this is a bit of a gradient, but like a lot of these colors are different. It might get a little murky here, but I think these are different enough. Yeah, these are different enough. Where we have green, a little lighter, back into like these feel similar in like value. Again, I'm not a color expert. So I'm gonna take a picture of this and I can refer back to this whenever I'm knitting, because also it's really hard to remember like, oh, did I want the dark turquoise or the light turquoise there? And that way, if you have a picture, there's like no guessing. This lamp is broken and it always bothers me when it's askew in videos, but it only works if it's tilted like that. We thrifted it, I don't know. It works fine, but I always am like, everyone's gonna think I'm so messy with my lampshade. I don't know what the thought process is. I think it's akin of your mom like scrubbing your floorboards when guests come over. It's like, I don't want people on the internet to think I'm messy, but it's like my lamp's just broken and I don't want to buy a new one. Anyway, I have some updates. I finished weaving in the ends for this square. As you can see, it looks really nice. Weaving in the ends is like fine. It's not the worst, but it's not the best either. I kind of like to make my way around the perimeter and work my way into the center just to like, I don't know, if there's some kind of sense to it, I feel like it goes quicker. I do want to start my next square. I don't want to weave in all these ends in like right now, but it's on the list. We're gonna get it done by the end of the video. I'm just feeling really inspired after having wound up all the yarn, and I even finished the first square off camera. This is the most boring square to complete. For some reason, they always end out a little wonky for me. I feel like my decrease edges are like bigger than my increase edges. A little tip on these ones is I remembered to put a stitch marker on the right side just so I knew which side I was working on when I was doing the increases and the decreases. I have all my minis wound up. I dedicated my project back then, which matches my dress. Hello. In the pattern, it's super clear like which steps you have to take to do which square. It's like my, I don't know. It's just so fun to follow. There's like a diagram. Anyway, I really enjoy it. Start with this bottom square, and then basically you can like just make it so you move across each one. But I kind of get really excited, and I think that like these ones where you're knitting with two colors are just like the most exciting to knit with. And I always think that the ones with more white are more boring. I like to knit this one, and then I'll knit this one, and then I'll knit like these four, and that doesn't really mess up like the order. Pretty clear in the pattern like which ones you need to knit in which order, and then from there I usually just like knit the rows as they go. I'm going to start this next square, and I actually want to time how long it takes to make because I'm kind of curious about that. I think I have a good idea. I think it takes 2 hours to knit one square, or roughly like 2 episodes of a 45-minute television show. I am in the middle of a summer house episode right now, so I'm not going to use that, but I'm going to put a timer, I think, on my computer and time how long it takes to knit the full next square. Little experiment, and then I feel like that way it'll help me predict, I don't know, my future making. I'm not really making this on like a stopwatch or anything, but I'm just kind of curious, how long does it take? Because they are a little bit deceptive. So let's get into it. Okay, just casting on took me 2 minutes and 28 seconds, so that's where we're at. I'll check you back in when I'm done with the first half. Okay, we are 15 minutes in. I'm almost done with this triangle. I have a few more rounds of short rows left. It's funny, I've never actually timed myself knitting, I don't think, because I've never really found it to be an important piece of information. I can feel myself knitting quicker because I'm like, I gotta beat the clock. And I don't at all. But it's interesting. So yeah, 15 minutes to do this much. 32 minutes and 29 seconds, we have half of a triangle. I'm ready to add the next color. And why did I say I thought this was going to take 2 hours? Girl who has no concept of time. But either way, we'll keep going. So I just cut the yarn and I am finishing off this last stitch at 1 hour and 1 minute and 3 seconds. So that's how long it takes to knit 1 square in the Stella blanket. Each blanket square, each motif has 16. So 1 times 16 times 16 times 3. I've already put 48 hours of work into the blanket, if not more. 48 hours of knitting and more of weaving, and there will be more of connecting and joining and knitting everything else, and obviously all of the squares. So that's interesting. It's an interesting piece of information to know. I will keep working on this and keep you guys updated. Last night I did all of the exciting work of weaving in all these ends, but I thought I'd save the really fun part for the camera, which is snipping things off. I was thinking to myself, weaving your ends in as you go is like one of the most self-important, I think, knitting tasks that you can do. And I do feel kind of braggadocious getting on the internet and being like, I'm weaving in all my ends as I go. Mostly kidding, but I do think if I didn't do this, I would never weave these ends in. So we gotta do it now, or else these ends will be wrapped around my children's fingers when I have them. Not pregnant, but maybe one day my baby will be in this blanket. We don't know. All right. Last ones. Oh, beautiful. Here's what I like to do when I like to weave in ends. I like to pretend that I'm like in the Regency era, a la Bridgerton. I'm like Francesca, sitting and waiting in my family living room with my 8 siblings for my suitor to come along, and I'm just like, you know, I'm just like weaving in my ends. I'm just like doing handiwork, and I'm just like being a woman of the aristocracy. So if you need to do a little role play, you need to do a little mental imagination to get your ends woven in, you gotta do what you gotta do. And that's what works for me. That's what works for me. A little helpful tip. Just delude yourself and use your little noggin up there. We are officially done with this square, and now we can fully direct our attention into knitting the next one. Back with a few updates. I first have a little progress update on the blanket. I've added my second color, which is the bright lime green. Very exciting. And then I get to do the best square or type of square in this motif. And that's when one square you get to use 2 of the contrasting colors at the same time. It's always really fun to start adding colors in because you see how 2 colors kind of look together, and then you get to add the other ones, and then maybe they get kind of like anchored by a different one that you haven't added yet. It's a little bit of a trust the process, but it's always fun to see and predict how it's going to turn out. I also visited my local yarn store Looped this weekend. I had a gift card there. I was like, let's see what they have as far as sock yarns go to see what I could maybe work into my blanket. I would love to point your attention back to my very detailed diagram here. I was also doodling. I'm a big doodler. This makes sense to me, it might not to you. I have a red square, an orange square, a yellow square, a green square, a light blue square, a dark blue, dark green square. I have a light purple, and I have a dark purple, and then I have a pink. Then I was like, and then I have like a beige one. I'm like, what are these other two going to be? And I decided that these need to be like up here with like, there needs to be some up here with the red. The reds that I have are quite intense, and I want to kind of anchor them with some like warmer, deeper pink tones. Let me show you what I got. I picked up 2 skeins of sock yarn from Big Little Yarn Co. I've actually worked with this dyer's yarn before. I made like a bunch of children's hats for a family friend, and they were just like the cutest little hats, the prettiest yarn. I picked up a skein in Moonglow, which is a pale yellow. The girlies might be calling this butter yellow. It's like almost paler than a butter yellow. It's pretty like washed out. And the other one is Carmelias and Kids. And it's this variegated like dark pink, lighter pinks, flecks of like violet in it. And I think this will make a very versatile yarn to work into either a square of its own or to hold together with some scraps, because I have some pink yarns to be knit. There were some pinks in that first square that I did that I could maybe start kind of piecing things together, and I feel like this gives me like a good working off point. I thought for the yellow yarn is that I can like mix these two in their own square together and maybe just have like a two-toned one, because a lot of the squares, if not most of them, are gonna have a bunch of different colors in them, and I thought it might look a little strange or like a little like odd if there's one square with just one contrasting color. I can hold them double, or I could hold, you know, I could like contrast the colors and play around with them. So I thought kind of like duo tone of yellows could be fun. And that's what I ended up getting. I'm gonna pause for now for Stella Quilt yarn. I really wanna stop it and just see how far this gets me, because I still have a lot of knitting to go. I'm just having the time of my life knitting on this. I don't know, I'm really enjoying it. And I was just like looking at all my squares today, and like I'm just so excited for this finished object. But it's really a labor of love kind of putting everything together. So I want to make a little bit more progress on this, and I also want to finish weaving the ends on this square before I wrap up this vlog. So that's what I'm going to work on in the next few days here, and we will, yeah, that's what we're going to work on. Okay, I'm working on adding the second color in here, and I just realized something mind-blowing. I loved how these colors are coming together. Something in my brain was just like lime green, light teal. I love it. And then I remembered these are the colors I elected to paint my bedroom when I was in the 8th grade. Master of color theory then, a master of color theory now. So anyway, that's what I'm thinking of as I'm finishing this 4th square. I'm back with an update. If I'm dressed a little differently, it's because I'm getting ready to go to work because I got a job, which is awesome. And I have to go into the office 2 days a week now, which is, haven't been to an office since 2020. I think it's really good, but I'm like, it just feels weird. Anyway, I have the knitting update, and this is where I've gotten so far on my square. I like really kept going. I was really on a roll before this weekend, so I added in all the 4 bottom colors. I decided to maybe take one color out, like that really bright green. It was just like very bright, and I already feel like this is very bright and like doing its own thing, and I don't know. I wasn't sure how I saw it all going together, So I just opted to take that one out for now. You're seeing me pre-coffee, and I hate to be don't talk to me before my coffee, but it's real. So yeah, I'm really happy with how this is going. I'm gonna cut the vlog here. If you made it this far, thanks so much for watching, and I'll definitely be continuing to vlog this process because this was a lot of fun. I can't wait to see how the whole blanket comes together. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.